People of the Ozarks, step away from the fishing pole and prepare to be shown the money, because we're back with more Straight Talk with Randy Floyd.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy Floyd along with Jake Floyd. You're listening to Show Me the Money, and in this segment, we're going to talk about, hey, what's your investment plan?
And Randy and Jake, for those people just joining us, we're talking about keys to retirement planning with Randy and Jake here at Floyd Financial Group. The number to call if you have questions or to get your complimentary plan, 417-889-7233. What's your investment plan? You know, no one can predict the market, and you may not want to risk potentially losing what you've saved just before you retire. You know, your risk tolerance may have decreased as you've got a little closer to retirement or have retired, and your retirement plan should take this into account. So what is the first step? How do you determine risk tolerance and really what someone's investment plan should be based on?
Jeff, that is something that we do each and every time as we sit down with people. We really want to learn how they feel about money and investment risk, and that's different for everybody. So we have a tool that we use that helps us to really assess how much pain people can take in the volatility of the stock market. You know, many times people come in, they sit down, and they tell us a story. You know, in 2007 and 8, I jumped out in 08 when the market was near the bottom. And then I couldn't pull the trigger to get back in for 5 or 6 years. And then I got back in, and then here we are, we're flattening out again, and we're concerned. Or even more, they never ever got back in. And so that money to them is lost forever. So one of the things that we do here at Floyd Financial Group with every investment plan that we do, we want to sit down and really understand how people think about money. We want them to be connected to their investments, so we take a lot of time to show them how we invest, what we invest in specifically, and how it works. Because if we build the portfolio right on the front end, and I just can't tell you how crucial this is, I don't even know how to say it accurately enough, but if we can determine your tolerance for volatility, we'll make you more money long term, and we'll give you a more calm and satisfying retirement. And I know that that's what everybody wants, isn't it?
Nobody wants a white-knuckle ride in retirement.
Gentlemen, you know, the effects of a market correction around the time of your retirement could be detrimental to your retirement plan. We all know that. How do you account for a market correction in a retirement plan? I mean, what sort of safety valves are built into that investment plan?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things that we do is we sit and we talk to people, and then we do this risk tolerance. And our risk tolerance is a little different than most. It's not a bunch of questions. Sometimes it's 10 or 15 questions that says, hey, you know, if the market does this, what are you going to do? And if it does this, what are you going to do? You know, that's the job that we do, is we're going to help people navigate that stuff. Now, not that they don't know how and they don't know what they would do. Maybe they do. But again, that's part of where our job comes in here. But the thing that we want to do is find out what their volatility, you know, how much volatility they can stand. A lot of people say, well, you know, I lost all that money in the stock market. Number one, we're not going to go out and invest in fledgling companies that are going to lose people's money. If we go out and we are going to take something that's going to be a little riskier position, we may do it with 1% of the money. Okay, so it's not like we're going to go out here swinging for the fences, throw all the money in Bitcoin and say, yeehaw, let's see what happens. I mean, it's nothing like that. I mean, it's a lot more calculated to that, because what we're doing here is we're taking a person's life savings or a couple's life savings that they've worked collectively maybe 50 to 60 or 70 years for. And we have to be really careful not to mess it up. So some of the tools that we use, traditionally, you know, people use the 60-40 retirement plan, which was 60% stock, 40% bonds, right?
Right.
So right now we know that bonds are pretty well broken, and bonds are probably not going to make any money for a while, because as interest rates go up, any bond we buy today or we bought yesterday is going to get devalued. And so we don't want to put people in harm's way out there in the bond market. Now, here at Floyd Financial Group, we can use any tool that we need to. So we can use stocks, bonds, real estate, annuities, insurance of all different types. We can use anything that's appropriate, and we want to use the appropriate tool for the time. There's no particular investment tool that we hate or we just don't like in general. We just want to make sure that we can use the proper one for the environment that we're in right now.
We're talking about the keys to retirement planning in 2022 with Randy and Jake of Floyd Financial Group. That's investment planning. And in the interest of time here, I want to skip on to the next one here. That's something very, very important, and I think everybody realizes healthcare. That is going to be probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest expense in retirement. Is that correct?
Absolutely it is. Here's what I would say. I know that in my experience, we've done a lot of long-term care planning for people over the years. So the last 15, 16 years, we see that probably 80% of the healthcare dollars people are going to spend occurs after age 65, which for most people is when they're retired. And of course, we have Medicare that steps in and helps us with all of what I would call the acute care stuff, the stuff we're going to get over, right, Jeff?
Right.
But when it comes to long-term care, past 100 days or so, Medicare is not a good fit for that. We need to have a different plan, beyond that. But yeah, healthcare is certainly a big consideration, and we got to think about that every time. And especially if people are retiring prior to age 65, we got to make sure we've figured out the healthcare piece for them to get them between 62 and 65, because we certainly don't want to have, heaven forbid, a big claim of some sort from a cancer or something like that could really be devastating to a retirement plan.
That's right, and we all know that Medicare covers a lot. It is very good insurance, but it doesn't cover everything. So certainly healthcare expenses are something that we do want to plan for. Long-term care, you talked about that too, and we've talked about that before here on the radio program, is the fact that most people are going to need some form of long-term care. You folks are elder care specialists. I mean, I would think that long-term care and healthcare is a major part of being an elder care specialist.
Yeah, Jeff, nothing can blow up a retirement plan quite like a nursing home stay. When costs are skyrocketing, even the last bastion of sanity, as you said earlier, here in Springfield, Missouri, the cost of a nursing home is $6,500 a month minimum, best you can do. There's a lot of places around the countryside that are $12,000 a month, best you can do. So that type of cost is very difficult to absorb into a retirement plan unless you have planned ahead for it.
Are there life insurance policies? I've heard about these before where you can get the death benefit advanced to you to pay for things such as long-term care.
Yes, those are out there. They're not out there in every case, but it's certainly something that is a very viable tool to use today, especially if people are younger, where we can still get a good value, a good bang for our buck on a life insurance policy, rather than paying a traditional long-term care insurance policy where we pay it like car insurance each month, and we don't wreck our car or we don't have a long-term care stay. We don't get that money back. When we do the life insurance chassis, yes, we know that somebody's going to benefit from that in the end. If we don't use it for long-term care, we know that our beneficiaries are going to get it. And secondly, those type of plans built properly, the cost never changes, which is one of the really big problems with the old models for long-term care insurance. It priced people out of the market over time.
And Randy and Jake, for those people who haven't been as fortunate as some others, certainly there is a safety net in this country. It is called Medicaid. There are two types of Medicaid. What are they, and what do they do?
Yes, Jeff, there are two types of Medicaid. One is vendor Medicaid. The other one is spend-down Medicaid. And the way that works, spend-down Medicaid is for those people that are not needing to be confined anywhere and really helped, with a long-term care situation, but they have low income but a lot of medical bills, and so they spend down part of their income each month, and then beyond that, Medicaid will take over and pay the rest of those bills. Vendor Medicaid is for nursing home stays, and so there's a lot of rules that go around that. There's a lot of people that think, hey, I've got to be dead broke before Medicaid will help me with a nursing home stay. I will tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. In most cases where I have a married couple, except for maybe some tax dollars, I can save about 100% of the money about 100% of the time, especially if I get ahead of the curve a little bit. The other thing that I would say about that too is, if you've got family farms, if you've got lake homes, real estate of any kind other than your primary dwelling, those things are all up for grabs for Medicaid if they pay benefits for you. So there's ways to avoid seizure there. I also want to throw this out. People say, well, I'm not sure I'd ever want to rely upon Medicaid because I feel like that's welfare. Let me just say this. Every paycheck you ever earned, your employer paid half and you paid half into Medicare and Medicaid since 1965. So it's a benefit that you've paid for, and what we'll do is just help you kind of like your tax man with your taxes. We'll help you understand Medicaid and how to apply what you've already paid for.
In wrapping up our Keys to Retirement Planning show today, Randy, I want to talk a little bit about estate planning. I mean, when it comes to estate planning documents, obviously there's a will, a trust, advanced medical directive, financial power of attorney. There's a lot to this. I'm going to wrap it up by asking you this one question. Will or trust? When is a will okay, or do you need a trust?
Well, that's a 30-minute answer.
Unfortunately,
anyway.
we've got about 2 minutes here, so I'm not going to pin you down too much. And we'll cover this in another show, but basically people are wondering, if I've got a will, is that enough?
Generally, I would say no. So let's talk about the idea is to avoid probate is the first thing we want to do. Secondarily, what we want to do is make sure that we don't disinherit anybody along the way. And so there's two ways to avoid probate. Number one, in the state of Missouri, I can put a beneficiary deed on my property. It avoids probate, but it doesn't always really get the end result that the client may want, because it may be that if you got 5 kids and they're all married, you have 10 people trying to decide how to dispose of your property when you're gone. So a beneficiary deed has that issue. The other issue is if somebody dies out of order or something like that, it could be that your grandkids get disinherited. So it's easy to avoid probate by doing beneficiary designations, putting POD, pay on death, on your bank accounts, TOD, transfer on death on your stock accounts and things, beneficiary designations on your IRAs. But there's other things that come along with an estate plan that we can't get into here today, but I would just say that the best thing that they can do, whoever is listening here today, we have in the office here, we have an attorney. Her name is Leisha Siri. She does estate planning, and she has paralegals here that work with her that can help people to really sit down and assess their situation and see what the best documentation, the best outcome for them would be, whether that be, a will with some powers of attorney and a beneficiary deed, or does a trust make the most sense? I will just tell you, it doesn't cost anything to sit with them as well. I would just encourage people to call, sit down with them. They'll walk you through it. Then you can make a really good, educated decision.
We've been talking about the keys to retirement planning with Randy and Jake at Floyd Financial Group. We talked about income planning, investing, estate, legacy planning, and healthcare. If you got questions about any of this, or if you would like a complimentary, no-cost, no-obligation financial plan with Randy and Jake at Floyd Financial Group, as I said, it's not going to cost you a dime. There's no judgment here. They'll meet you where you are. Call 417-889-7233, 417-889-7233. You can also request your plan online at floydfinancialgroup.com. Gentlemen, out of time for this week. Thank you for your time. I want to thank our listeners for joining us. For Randy and Jake, I'm Jeff Shade. Get out there. Have a great day in this great part of the country that we live in. We'll talk to you again next week with another edition of Show Me the Money right here on 104.1 FM KSGF, where Springfield comes to talk. If you're planning to retire soon or are already in retirement, you more than likely have some questions, like when should I take Social Security? How can I avoid running out of money? Or how am I going to deal with taxes in retirement? Floyd Financial Group in Springfield can help answer these questions. They've been designing retirement plans for people like you for more than 20 years. They recognize that you're unique, so your plan is tailored to your unique individual needs. They'll work with you to determine what it costs to be you in retirement, then design a cash flow plan, tax plan, a plan for paying for health and long-term care expenses, an estate plan, and how to pay for the uncertainties in life. If you'd like to begin a conversation to answer your questions, call for your no-cost, no-obligation, no-judgment financial review. Call 417-889-7233. That's 417-889-7233. Or request your plan online at floydfinancialgroup.com. Floyd Financial Group, LLC is an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Ready for a heapin' helping of some more real talk? Thought so. Here's another serving of Show Me the Money with your server, Randy Floyd.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy Floyd. You're listening to Show Me the Money. Jake Floyd's along with me on the show today. And in this segment, we're going to start talking about the 5 keys to retirement planning.
And Jake and Randy, those 5 keys are healthcare, estate and legacy planning, taxes, investing. But I want to start off with what I think is the bedrock of your retirement planning, and that is going to be income planning. It's kind of a shock. I mean, you know that when you retire, you're not going to get that regular paycheck, but that first week when payday rolls around that you were used to and that check doesn't come, the hard reality sets in. So let's start out with income planning. How do you go about, first of all, figuring out how much money you're going to need, and do you need as much in retirement as you would have needed when you were working?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a good place to start, Jeff. So Generally when people come in to sit down with us and start this process, they've been working a very long time. They've raised a family. Many times they've had kids that have gone through college. They've paid off their home, and now they're putting the finishing touches. Maybe they're 55, maybe they're even 58 years old, and they're putting the finishing touches on their retirement planning. And so they're really not on a budget, because they're making more money than they've ever made in their career. Their expenses have gone down because maybe they've paid off a house, like I said, and their kids are through college. And so a budget is the first thing we have to talk about. And now a budget is not one of those things where we're saying, okay, we're going to screw you down tight here so you can't have any fun in retirement. It's not about that. It's about really waking up to the realization, okay, this is the amount of money that I need. And then from there, we can go about starting to really look at that retirement planning process. Now, most people today have what I call a two-legged stool. Used to be, back over the years, people had a three-legged stool, and that was we had a pension potentially. And we still around here have a few people that come in that have pensions, and those are very nice when you have them. And then we have Social Security as a piece of that income. And thirdly, then we have the 401k, or what money they have saved over their lifetime, or maybe sometimes a little inheritance that they're going to have to figure out how to draw income off that money and make it last the rest of their life.
So, Randy, as you said, three-legged stool there. We've got company pensions. If you do have a company pension, and as you said, many people don't have them these days, personal savings, 401k, maybe an IRA. But you mentioned there the bedrock, which is Social Security. That is something that a lot of people count on. Typically, how much does Social Security make up of someone's retirement income? For example, here in the last bastion of sanity, is it 30, 40, 50%, something like that?
Yeah, I would say probably in the 35 to 40% range is what it's going to be. In some cases, it'll be as much as 50%, but for the most part, probably in the 40% range. And, this last year, people got a raise on Social Security. They got 5.9%. So if you look back over your shoulder, historically, that was a huge raise comparatively. Because if you look back as far as 2003 and through 2022, the average raise out there was probably in the 1.5% to 2% range. So it felt like a pretty good raise this year, even though Medicare Part B did go up this year. We still were able to make some pretty good gains because we only lost about $20 to Medicare Part B, and the average person gained about $92 in their Social Security check. So that was a pretty good thing, pretty good piece of information for most people on Social Security, and they're happy to have that extra money, I'm sure.
I'm sure they are too, Randy. And as you said, $148.50 is what we paid for Medicare Part B last year, up to $170.10 this year. 5.9% COLA increased cost of living adjustment. But again, inflation running 6.8%, so we still got to be a little careful there when it comes to our income. One of the questions I asked you earlier there, Randy, and I want to touch on this again, do most people underestimate the amount of money that they're going to need in retirement?
I don't know that they underestimate what they're going to need. In many cases, and this is going to sound horrible, but I'm going to say it, they've thought about retirement, but they haven't really thought about retirement. So when they come in here and we sit down, it's difficult for people to translate, all the saving they've been doing in their 401k and money maybe in a brokerage account or wherever they've saved their money. It's hard for them to translate, what does that mean to me in income? Used to be CDs paid, well, in the 80s, they paid 12%. In the 90s, they paid 5 or 6%. In the early 2000s, 3 or 4%. And today they're paying 1%. So it used to be retirees could say, well, if I draw 5% on $1 million, that's $50,000 a year. Well, we don't have those type of fixed income positions anymore. So we have to do other things. So it's more and more difficult for people to really ascertain what it is they're going to be able to withdraw from their retirement plan.
I think also when it comes to Social Security that there's a lot of people, especially listeners of this show, that are concerned that Social Security may not be there someday. And while I understand that concern, I think I want to put some of those fears to rest and say that I don't think Social Security is going away. It may look different, but it will be there. The government cannot just put 30, 40% of retirees in this country out on their ear. And a lot of people depend on that every single month to make ends meet. So again, I just don't want anybody to be sitting out there being afraid that Social Security is just going to dry up someday.
So as you said, when you look at that retirement stool, three legs it used to be: personal savings, company pensions, and Social Security. I think the more sturdy leg at this point happens to be Social Security. But I don't think that it's going to go away completely, as you said, Jake. And Randy, you've told me before Jake came on the show that you told Jake, don't count on it, son. I mean, it may not be as much a part of your retirement income as it was for us. Do you think that still holds true?
I absolutely do think that still holds true. And I think that probably what I tell people most of the time, if you're 55 and older at this point right now today and listening to this program, you probably don't have much of a change in Social Security coming on down the pike for you. But if you're 50 and younger, you better plan on it just being a windfall.
Yeah, and what I was saying before, Jeff, that's aimed at people, like he said, 50 and older. People that are 37 like me, or occasionally will have the very responsible 25-year-old come in for advice. That's a different story. I think that the biggest way that we'll fix Social Security will be to take it out of the hides of people 40 and younger. But that's just kind of the hand we're dealt. And to everybody listening over the age of 50, you're welcome.
Very, very well put there, Jake. We're talking about income planning with Randy and Jake Floyd of Floyd Financial Group. Once again, if you would like a complimentary, no-cost, no-obligation plan with Randy and Jake, get yours by calling 417-889-7233. You can also request it online at floydfinancialgroup.com. So Social Security, the fattest leg of the retirement stool there, company pensions, not many people have those these days. Are there ways that you can create a substitute for a company pension, gentlemen?
Oh, yeah, there's ways to do that. One of the things that most people probably don't realize is a lot of pensions are funded around the countryside through what's called an annuity contract. And those annuity contracts are generally what's called immediate annuities. One of the largest producers of annuities around the countryside out there is TIAA, which is the Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association. And that's how most teachers' pensions are paid. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce pays their pension that way. So it's something that's used because they can guarantee an income. But anytime we get guarantees, we have to give up a few things, right?
Right.
So when we get a guarantee from an immediate annuity, it's very restrictive because when you take your pension, and you probably have heard of this, Jeff, where people would say, well, I'm just about to take my pension, and if I take it on just my life, I'm going to get, $2,000 a month. If I want my wife to get half of it, it lowers my payment to $1,500 a month. What should I do? So there's a little math problem we have to go through there to really figure out what's what. Also, with just that piece of the puzzle I just shared with you, there may be a lot more information. Your wife or your spouse may be independently wealthy, right?
Maybe.
If they are, that it's not such a big decision.
She hasn't told me that she's independently wealthy just yet. Thank you.
Anyway, it just depends on what the situation is. And we always tell people, there's no one size fits all. But yes, you can do that through an immediate annuity. And that's one of the things that we really here at Floyd Financial Group do not like to use because there's other tools that we can use where we can still protect people's money, still give them income, but not restrict them so much to where once they make a decision, they can never change their mind. They can never manipulate it or, change how it pays out.
When we make a plan, Jeff, a lot of times what we're looking for is something that can be altered. One of the things I tell people whenever we're in a meeting doing retirement planning with them is, I don't know what your retirement looks like in your head, but I can promise you that it will be different than that. The only constant in life is change, and because of that, we need to be able to change our income plan looking forward. Sometimes we don't have to change it, but sometimes we start off with an income level that is actually more than the client needs. So we don't want to withdraw off of retirement accounts to cause extra taxation just because that's how we set it up, right? So we want it to be intuitive and able to change as the client's life changes looking forward.
So when you set up these income plans, as you said, they're not set in stone, and certainly people's expenses, I would think, change over the course of their retirement. In the beginning, you may need more money because you want to do some of the things on your bucket list, but then at the end, you've got health care costs. Do you find that you want to maybe alter the way that this income is distributed to account for things like that? What I mean is do you front load these plans so that maybe there's a little dip in the middle and then bring them back up at the end? How does it really work?
Absolutely, Jeff. And each client is a little bit different. We have some clients that are like, hey, I want to spend most of my money probably in the first 10 years because those are the best 10 years that I have left. And then we have people that will shop at Goodwill and pinch every penny so they can leave $1 million inheritance to their kids. And there's no right or wrong way to do it, but everybody is different, and we have to account for that whenever we do the planning. That's why each plan must be unique.
We're talking about income planning with Jake and Randy Floyd of Floyd Financial Group. Once again, if you're a loyal listener to this program, even if you have just joined us, we have a great offer, I think, that's going to be very beneficial to you. That is the opportunity to get a no-cost, no-obligation financial review that could lead to a financial plan with Randy and Jake there at Floyd Financial Group. To request yours, again, no cost, no obligation, no judgment whatsoever. Simply call 417-889-7233, 417-889-7233. Do it this weekend or do it at the beginning of the week. You could also go to the website and check out the firm there at floydfinancialgroup.com and request your plan there. Once again, that website, floydfinancialgroup.com. You're listening to Show Me the Money. We're talking about the 5 keys to retirement planning with Randy and Jake, and our show will continue right after this, right here on 104.1 FM KSGF, where Springfield comes to talk.
If you hear the word insurance, what comes to mind? Is it a company, a funny advertisement, your car in the driveway, or the roof over your family's head? I'm guessing you didn't even think about taxes. But if you could retire today and pay little to no taxes on your retirement income for the rest of your life, would you? At Floyd Financial Group, we're here to tell you there's a whole other side to insurance that you're probably not even aware of. Many wealthy investors have been using some of these sophisticated insurance products to minimize their retirement income taxes. Not everyone can qualify for these premium insurance products, so call today at 417-889-7233 to learn if it's an option for you. At Floyd Financial Group, we put our clients' interest above our own, and as an independent firm, you'll have more access to a variety of products and strategies that can help reduce or even eliminate your tax burden in retirement. One phone call could change the course of your retirement future. That number is 417-889-7233, or go online to floydfinancialgroup.com.
Floyd Financial Group, LLC is an SEC registered investment advisor.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy Floyd. You're listening to Show Me the Money, and in this segment, we're going to be talking about estate planning. What in the world is that, Jeff?
Yeah, Randy, I was going to answer that question for you, but I think you'd be better off to answer it because I think you've got more information or better information than I do. So what is estate planning?
Sure. Estate planning, Jeff, basically is this. 2 things. Number one, who gets my stuff when I die, all spelled out. And secondly, we want to make sure that as we do that and transfer those assets, for most people, the most important thing is that we avoid the probate system, the court system of dividing that up. Now, it's very easy to avoid probate in many cases, but there are some complications that come along in estate planning that really, many times creates the need for a trust. Now, here at Floyd Financial Group, we've been dealing with attorneys and estate planning. In fact, we even have an attorney in-house that's an estate planning and an elder law attorney. So for the last 18 years, we've been helping people, navigate this sort of thing, because 2002 was really my first in-depth exposure to estate planning. So just a very important piece. There are some people that they need estate planning because of, estate taxes and things. Not so much anymore, since right now the estate tax threshold for married couples are around $22 million they can give away without a death tax or an estate tax. So mainly today, it's very important that we have an estate plan to make sure we know who gets what, when they get it, how they get it, and we avoid the probate system.
Now, Randy, in Missouri, the probate system is not short, is it?
No, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because, the system here in Missouri is it's going to take about 8 months at the best you can do, maybe a year to get assets through probate. In fact, many times we say, if you don't have a good, effective estate plan and your kids have to go through probate, it's kind of like you filed a lawsuit against them. Now, nobody would want to do that, I know, but that is really what it amounts to, because it's a very tedious process, very long, and it's just really no fun at all.
Well, Randy, we've all seen those TV shows where someone, or movies where someone's sitting there and they're reading the last will and testament, and a lot of people think, well, I've got a will, I made this thing out a while ago, and it specifies that this person gets that and that person gets the other thing there, and that's all it is. You give it to them at the end of the day and we're all done. But if you have a will, it still has to be probated, right?
That is correct. So many times, if we've done our estate planning right and we've assigned our beneficiary designations right, there will be no probate, and really all the will's going to have any power over maybe some personal property and things of that nature. So let's talk about ways to avoid probate, number one. So number one, if you have a beneficiary designation, like if you own an IRA or a 401k, you can put beneficiary designations on there that says, hey, my son Mark and my daughter Jill and my daughter Judy and my boy Elroy, they all they all get their percentages out of there, right? So you can do that on IRAs, 401ks, life insurance policies. You can even do what's called a pay on death on your bank accounts, and those all avoid probate. There's a couple of complications with those things, though. So when we look at beneficiary designations on bank accounts especially, many times all we have is one level of pay on death and we don't have anything below that. So if somebody dies out of order, people can unintentionally be disinherited. The other thing is if we have beneficiary designations on our IRAs and our 401ks, many times as people age, if one of their children should predecease them, they forget to change their beneficiary designations, and that can create some issues there as well. So while there's lots of ways to do it, many times a trust can be indicated. So let's talk about, let's say you have property that you want to pass upon your death. A lot of people, and you may be the same way, Jeff, I don't know who owns your house. What is legal title on your deed? Is it you and your wife as the owners? Or do you have something set up where there's a transfer? In the state of Missouri here, we can use what's called a beneficiary deed to transfer real estate to our heirs when we draw our last breath. So, that's the thing you need to ask yourself is how are you set up? If it's just in yours and your wife's name and nobody else, that is going to be probated upon your death. Even if you have a beneficiary deed, I had one guy that came in here, he had 7 children. And those 7 children were married. So in the state of Missouri, if you pass your assets or your real estate on that beneficiary deed, all 14 of those people, yes, the husbands and wives, have to agree as to what happens to that property upon your death. Wow. It's hard to get 2 people to agree on anything, let alone 14.
Right.
So there's a lot of complications with beneficiary deeds. Secondly, if today we know that about half of all marriages in America end up in divorce. So if you have a second marriage, you've got a blended family, a trust can many times be indicated because you can absolutely be sure that your kids or their kids or our kids don't get disinherited in the event one of us dies early and somebody remarries. So there's a lot of different setups out there that come into play. Everybody's situation is different. I always tell people this. All families are dysfunctional. It's just to what degree. Mm-hmm. It's just really what it boils down to.
Okay, Randy, so we have a will or a trust, but I know that things happen. There are adverse conditions that can challenge a will or a trust. First of all, Randy, what are some of those adverse conditions, and what are some of the ways that we can prevent those adverse conditions from having an effect on our estate?
Sure. There's several adverse conditions that can come along. Number one is a divorce. If somebody is divorced or in the middle of a divorce about the time your children are about to inherit assets. In fact, I had this very case happen. There was a $2 million estate in play. One of the sons, who was a 50% heir of the $2 million, was going through a divorce, and his soon-to-be ex-wife was saying, I'm just going to hang on till your mom dies, and then I'm going to get half of your inheritance. Well, the trust that had been set up had a provision in there that says, well, if there's any adverse condition, we can just hold the money in trust indefinitely. So with that person going through that divorce, we shared that with her, and she went ahead and signed the divorce papers and left. So that's one adverse condition that we've avoided by using the right type of a trust. Also, you may have a child that has special needs, maybe someone that's got a dreaded disease or a lifelong ailment, and they're on certain government benefits and things like that. We want to be able to get things for them, but we can't plop a bunch of money in their lap, because if we do, they lose all their benefits. That might be one. The other one may be that looking to plan for your disability or your potential need for long-term care, which, by the way, is at least half of us. You may want to structure your trust in certain ways if you're a veteran to where you can qualify for VA benefits or for Medicaid benefits in the event you need skilled nursing in the end. So that's just a few of the adverse conditions that we can protect with a proper estate plan, as well as lawsuits should be added in there as well. We can prevent people from suing you and taking what you worked a lifetime for.
Randy, can a proper estate plan mitigate taxes?
Well, it can. I mean, again, we're looking mainly, when we look at taxation and trust, you're generally looking at a death tax or an estate tax. Mm-hmm. And so generally that's what you're looking at. However, there would be certain situations where IRAs, 401ks, or money that has been growing tax deferred, maybe in an annuity contract or something like that, where you want to have that money paid out over time, and we can have the trust designate that as such.
All right. Now, there are these online will companies. We've all seen them where, you can get a will for $99, and certainly I've heard of people doing that. But are those wills always the best way to go, or are there circumstances where you may need a more comprehensive will?
Yeah, I will say this, the wills that you can buy online and all that sort of thing, they'll work and they're fine. The only thing is there hasn't been really any real planning go into that and any real thought process most of the time as to what does it really mean if all of my stuff passes through the process of probating a will. And that's exactly it. You're going to be in probate. Again, there's many ways to avoid going through probate. Trusts, beneficiary deeds, beneficiary designations, all those different things. But many times people just don't really understand what they're doing. Now, I want to make two things really clear. Number one, I am not an attorney. Number two, I've been dealing with estate planning for 18 years, and I have an attorney in-house that is an attorney for the last 25 years, and she does do estate planning. And so if you want to talk about estate planning, you would certainly be talking to the legal side or the attorney that's in the building here with us to do that sort of thing. But just suffice it to say that it costs you nothing to come in and have your situation looked at, because she's just like us. She sits down and gives a free consultation. Costs you nothing to come in and sit down and have your situation looked at, and we can run through the possibilities of what could go wrong, what could go right with the right estate plan. And that's the thing I want to stress here is everybody's estate plan is different. Family dynamics are different, amounts of money are different, amounts of land are different, and goals and desires on how you pass things at your death are all different. So there's no blanket solution. It's a very individualized thing, estate planning is.
So you're offering a complimentary consultation there to take a look at your estate plan as well, Randy, with your estate planning attorney who is in-house. And to get your complimentary financial plan or take a look at your estate, once again, that number is 877-889-PLAN, 877-889-7526. You can also get your complimentary consultation online at floydfinancialgroup.com. And again, don't be afraid to go in and talk to Randy and the staff there at Floyd Financial Group. They're really, really nice people. I mean, this is a situation where they're going to meet you where you are. Do not worry that you don't have $250,000 or $500,000 or a huge estate. They'll take a look at what you do have and give you some advice on how to deal with that. Once again, there is no cost, no obligation. floydfinancialgroup.com is the website, and the number, once again, 877-889-7526. You're listening to Show Me the Money, and we'll be right back with more after this.
How are you preparing for potential tax increases as a result of the stimulus plan? In a recent study, more than 90% of people at or near retirement age believe that their taxes will increase significantly during retirement. The good news is that there are strategies designed to protect your savings and your income from big tax increases, and Floyd Financial Group is here to help. Their goal is to help protect and grow your wealth and your disposable income in retirement. Floyd Financial Group is making it easier than ever to find out how. Give them a call today at 417-889-7233 to schedule an in-office or virtual chat about your financial well-being in retirement. It's a complimentary conversation focused solely on you, your questions, your goals, and how changes can impact your family's future. Call 417-889-7233 or learn more online at floydfinancialgroup.com. That's floydfinancialgroup.com.
Floyd Financial Group, LLC is an SEC-registered investment advisor.
People of the Ozarks, step away from the fishing pole and prepare to be shown the money, because we're back with more straight talk and honest answers with Randy Floyd, Jake Floyd, and Jeff Shea.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Randy and Jake. You're listening to Show Me the Money. In this final segment, we're going to be talking about, if I were to come see you, Randy, what does that look like and what can I expect?
Yeah, so many people don't know when they call 417-889-7233. They set up that appointment. They come in and maybe they're a little reticent because they don't know what's going to happen when you come in to have that initial conversation. I understand that it is a 5-step process. What should we expect in general when we come in to see you?
Yeah, I think before I actually get into the 5 steps, I want to preface it by saying this. So, number one, it is a very casual environment, and we are just going to get to know each other and talk. The thing about it is most people retire one time. Mm-hmm. They don't retire multiple times. We retire people every week, and so we know a lot of the questions that are probably already on your mind, but you're going to have some, and we're happy to answer anything. But I think the biggest thing, that I want to run down here is I got 3 or 4 things that I think are important. Number one, when people come in and they sit down and they think, well, I'm thinking about not working. Number one is, where's my income going to come from?
Yeah.
Right? and what's that going to look like? So we will talk about that when we get there. The other thing is, of course, when you have income, what's next? Well, what does my tax picture look like? And then also, hey, if something happens to me, what happens to my stuff? So we've talked about the estate plan just a little bit, so we're going to talk about that. And yes, we're going to talk about investing. And we're going to talk about investing in such a way that you don't glaze over and fall asleep while we're blowing the air toward you as we speak about all these investments.
That's a good term.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Not literally, of course.
And then finally, we're going to get to, okay, so yeah, that kind of makes sense. Now, how do we get there? Right? That's the question. I mean, that's the real question. How do we get there? And what are the moving parts that we have to explore to get there? Right. So that then takes us to the 5 steps that we're going to talk about. And this is how we approach getting this information without putting a bright light in your face, and giving you truth serum. And
First of all, we don't do that, ladies and gentlemen. Please realize we don't do that, okay? This is just an example. So we come in and sit down, we meet you, there's Ashley, she's got a nice soda, she's got some cookies or whatever, and then we come into the room and you're going to go into the conference room, we're going to sit down with you. As we said, it's a no-tie zone. We can sit down with Jake, he's not wearing a tie either. Could be either one of you or it could be both of you. Now, before we get to that so-called scary money stuff, you really get to know somebody. Why is it important to know where they're from, what they like to do, to see if we have any mutual friends, that sort of thing? Why is that important?
Well, there's a lot of different takes on what retirement is, right? So I have people that come in and they say, man, when I retire for the first 5 years, I'm buying a motor home and I ain't ever coming back here. Okay? And then there's people that say, well, my idea is I want to take 4 trips a year and I want to go abroad and I want to see the West, or I want to see every state in the U.S., or I have people that say, hey, I got cattle, I got land, and what I want to do is park on the porch every morning and every evening and look out at my cattle and drink some coffee or whatever. And then there's everything in between, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know that until I have a chance to have a conversation with you. And I will tell you that sometimes there's a little division even between husband and wife. And the wife wants to travel some, and the husband says, I don't ever want to travel anymore. I've been traveling my whole life for my career or whatever. But this is part of step 1, which is what we call discovery. And it's just where we get to know people and know what's important to them. If I don't know what's important to you, how can I possibly help you with any advice? So that's first and foremost is discovery, learning about you and what you want.
And we call that lifestyle planning. We got to figure out what your lifestyle is. And as you said, among couples, it can be a very, very different thing. You told the story once. I want you to tell it briefly again about the couple who came in and they were retiring and the man bought the motorhome.
Oh yeah, this has been some years ago, and he came in and he was showing me pictures and he told me about it. And he says, yeah, I got a satellite dish up on the side. He said, so I can take my laptop in no matter where I am. I can check my portfolio and we can do trading or whatever it is. And his wife was kind of appalled looking when he said that. And she says, well, I am not going, is what she said. So
not her idea of retirement. And I think many times, too, the husband and wife, they have different ideas about what retirement's going to be like. And it comes down to lifestyle planning, too, because, for 30 years or so, she's been used to not having him around. He's been used to not having her around for 8-10 hours a day. You put them together, and it maybe isn't like it was during the honeymoon period. So, yeah, you got to find out what your goals, your dreams, your wishes are for retirement and make sure that both parties are happy. Okay, so the first step is called discovery, discovering who you are, where you want to go in retirement, what your lifestyle is going to be like. You've done that. Okay, so now what's next?
So number 2, we're going to start looking at what people have saved and what their Social Security income looks like. If they're fortunate enough to have a pension plan, maybe what that looks like, what they have in the bank savings-wise, do they owe on a house, do they owe on a lake property? I mean, all those sorts of things. We're just going to really figure out where they are and say, okay, now, does this fit? And how do we make that fit is going to lead us into step 3. But analysis is just really finding out the resources that people have to support the lifestyle they've told us they want.
So it's what you've got, and it's sort of like a puzzle a little bit. I mean, you've got these holes to fill, and you just got to see if the right pieces are there to fill these holes, and if the right pieces are not there, maybe it's a different puzzle that you've got to design. Is it sometimes a reality check, or do most people operate within the realm of what they can really do?
Once in a while it's a reality check, but I would say for the most part, we live here in the middle of the country, the last bastion of sanity, and if they moved here from California, it's because they realized it.
Right.
So, I mean, most people are pretty well grounded when they come in here, but again, they haven't really thought about, how do I put this puzzle, how do I put Humpty Dumpty back together again when I retire, right?
It's falling off the wall. So discovery, we've discovered you, then we've analyzed what you've got to try to get there. What is the third step, Randy?
The third step then is the actual planning or the putting together of the puzzle, if you will. And so that's when we're going to drill down and just say, okay, so based on what you've told me and the income and the stuff that you need, this is how we would set things up. Now, it's not like, hey, it's my way or the highway. This is a starting point. And from here, the planning process sometimes gets massaged. And what I mean by massage is I say, well, we can see that the first 5 years we're going to need to spend more money than we will later. Or some people say, you know what, I'm not going to need any money for a decade. So it's just different for everybody, and all the family dynamics are different. Hey, I want to give my sons and daughters some money now. All these different things come up that they hadn't voiced before. So during the planning process, we address all those different needs that people may have to arrive at a point they go, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So discovery, analysis, planning, that's 3 of the 5 steps. What is number 4?
Number 4 is implementation. In other words, so now that we've got the plan, where do we start to put the puzzle together? So what we do is we do all the paperwork and do all the contacting of where your assets are and restructure things to support the income you want, the lifestyle that you've told me you want, and get you on down the road and get you retired.
Okay, so we've implemented that plan. I'm now a client of Floyd Financial Group. Is there a way for me to follow up with you to follow up with me? I mean, do you furnish me with logins, that sort of thing, so I can check on things? Or is it a set it and forget it? How does it work?
Yep, no set it and forget it. Like Jake said, this is always a changing landscape because life changes and we get different people in office and different tax structures and all that. But yeah, we continually monitor what's going on here on a daily basis across all of our clients, and we have models and situations that help us, and computers that help us do all that. And then there's a review process that we do. Generally, once you become a client, in the first 90 days, we're going to review, get back together, say, okay, how's it going? How's your income feeling? We need a little less, a little more. And then, we'll tell them what we're thinking about what's going on, update them on any system changes if there have been any. Once in a while there is, but not very often. But generally, that review process we'll do every 90 days for a while. Then generally it'll graduate to every 6 months. And then we have some people that we've had for 20 plus years that we see them once a year, knowing that they can always call us any day because we're in the office here every day and we have a complete staff to serve them here, So, but we do want to review over and over, keep everybody on the same page. Everybody knows what's going on, how we're doing spending wise, and how our investments are doing. So that's an ongoing process.
So discovery, analysis, planning, implementation, and follow-up. That sounds like a lot of work, Randy. How many meetings is that in total, would you say, on average?
So it depends on the person, but generally speaking, we're going to have at least 2 meetings to do the discovery and the analysis and planning. And then there's generally a 3rd meeting to actually do the implementation and get it done. And then, like I said, after that, once it's set up, we're going to have our next meeting 90 days. It doesn't have to be 90 days. It can be sooner or it can be a little longer than that. But generally, 90 days is what we initially set up.
Okay, so that's a lot of work. And it comes down to this is, okay, you've done all of this. You've set up this retirement plan for me. You're not necessarily a philanthropic organization, even though I think that the work that you do here is a public service. Has anybody ever asked you, and what's your answer to this question, how do you get paid?
Sure thing. So when we manage, money for people, generally our annual fee is 1% per year to manage money, like if it's in the stock market or, bonds and things of that nature. But 1% a year is pretty much what we work for. There are some situations where companies will write us a check, a commission check or something like that, but they do not ding their account directly for that. Otherwise, it's going to be 1% per year, and I would say that's about our overall Well, not about. It is what we charge, 1% per year.
Right. Well, you're not skimping on service, but you are the low price leader here in Springfield, Missouri for that. So that's what the initial conversation is going to be when you come in and sit down with Floyd Financial Group. And again, there's no cost, there is no obligation to this whatsoever. So, Randy, how can people get started on this path towards a confident retirement?
Sure thing. They just need to give us a call and have Ashley book an appointment. And, you're not promising us anything except that you'll show up for your appointment. We like to, if you're going to say you're going to be here, we like for you to be here. But other than that, all we're going to do is sit down and get to know one another. If you don't want to have another meeting with us, that's absolutely fine. We understand that. And many times we have people that come in 3, 4, 5, 6 years and even longer sometimes ahead of time to really make sure that they're on a solid path looking forward to retirement. And again, we can start this process now and really help them walk these final few years into that, and that's really a good outcome.
Randy, there are a lot of bright people out there listening to this program. They'd have to be smart to be listening to Show Me the Money. They think they can do this themselves. Why would you say that retirement planning and all the things that you do is not really a DIY project?
Yeah, so it's kind of like this. Sometimes people just, I'm retired. I don't want to go work and manage my retirement now too.
Right.
They want to go retire and have some fun, right? They don't want to be watching it every day. That's what people pay us to do. Also, rules change, laws change, investing requirements are changing all the time. The other thing I would say is many times you're not quite sure the right questions to ask. You don't know what you don't know. I'm that way in many things. That's why I am a big proponent, Jeff. I will tell you, if there's a do-it-yourself project at home, I never do it. I hire somebody that does it for a living. Yeah. And guess what? I'm not as stressed about it. My wife certainly isn't as stressed about it.
Yeah.
And hey, everybody gets paid. The economy works for everybody, right?
Yeah. I've learned that the hard way. I don't do things myself anymore. It just takes a couple of times of trying to do it yourself and then having to call in the plumber. Okay, so there's a study called the Dalbar study. I want people to look this up if they haven't seen it, DALBAR. And that study does show, if you're a fee weenie, you're worried about the 1%, that study does show that if you do use a financial advisor, you will make more money on average than if you tried to do it yourself. So there are a lot of reasons to call us here at Floyd Financial Group. Get that conversation started. You can do that by calling 417-889-7233. You can do it this weekend. Phone lines are open. Leave your name, your telephone number. Ashley will call you back, set up that appointment. Make that call this weekend, 417-889-7233. It is a casual conversation, no tie zone. This one call could make all the difference. You can also find out more about us online at floydfinancialgroup.com. Well, Randy and Jake, it's always nice to be with you, but the clock says it's time to go. So for Randy and Jake, I'm Jeff Shade. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again next week with another edition of Floyd Financial Group Show Me the Money right here on 104.1 FM KSGF, where Springfield comes to talk. The information provided in the preceding program is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for any individual or entity. All information contained herein is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representations as to its completeness or accuracy. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Please consult your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Financial planning is offered through Floyd Financial Group, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. If you're age 59 and a half or older with a 401k plan and still working, stop what you're doing and call Floyd Financial Group today at 877-889-PLAN. There are benefits with age, and this is one of them. At 59 and a half, you're entitled to new opportunities in the investment world that can help you save thousands in 401k fees and dramatically reduce your risk of a market correction. You've worked and saved, and now's the time to protect your retirement savings. Call Randy Floyd of Floyd Financial Group today at 877-889-PLAN. That's 877-889-7526. The 5 years just before and after you retire are critical. Do not put yourself at risk. Randy and his team can help show you how to secure your nest egg and ensure income streams for life. Call Floyd Financial Group today at 877-889-PLAN. That's 877-889-7526 for your free complimentary review, or go online to floydfinancialgroup.com. That's floydfinancialgroup.com. Floyd Financial Group, LLC is an SEC registered investment advisor.